Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our Accounts Payable 2 workshop for intermediate skills. Today, we're going to be learning about some higher level accounts payable features. And just so you know, we really appreciate your time today. We know everyone is busy, so we always appreciate the time that you're willing to give to us. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we're going to talk about today is processing owner checks. Now, these first couple of topics we did go over briefly in our fundamentals, accounts payable session. I'm going to address them again quickly in this one because there are very useful functions and it will help you keep down the amount of vendors you have entered into Unify, which will allow you to parse through them a lot more quickly when you're needing to enter your invoices. So if you have an owner with a credit balance that you need to refund, first we need to go to Manage Owner Refund, and Manage Owner Refund will show us all of the accounts with a credit balance. If I move up here to balance type, I can change that. So maybe I want to look at open balance, zero balance, or maybe I want to view all. So I can do that as well. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I just want to look at those with a credit balance. And we're going to start with Mr. Elbridge Jerry. Now, if I wanted to take a closer look at Mr. Jerry's accounts, I could click on his name right there. That'll link me to his account information. As you can see, it popped open a new window for me, which is very convenient, so I don't have to lose my place in the old window. I can go to his transactions page. Let's kind of view what's been going on there. I can view anything else I want to take a look at. And when I'm done, I can just close that out. So I'm going to go ahead and decide I want to refund him. So I'm going to click on that. If I wanted to refund everybody, I could click on the radio button at the top. Or if I just wanted to do a couple, I could click on that. All right. But for our demonstration, I'm just going to look at Mr. Jerry. Okay, so I'm going to make certain we've got a couple of contacts here. We can refund primary owner, who's Mr. Jerry. If we had additional contacts, say a tenant or an emergency contact, maybe his son is managing his trust and his son made the refund, we have him in as a contact, we could refund him. So however we want to do that, we can just pick the one we want. In this case, this is going back to primary owner, Mr. Jerry. I can choose my bank account from this drop-down menu. It's going to default to what I have set up on the Manage Bank Accounts page, but I can change this if I'm so inclined. Need to choose his transaction type, which I believe I have one. Yep, there it is, owner refund. And then I can decide how I want to pay him. I can pay him via check or auto debit. Check is actually going to print out, a paper check for Mr. Jerry that you're going to put in the mail for him. If you want to use auto debit, that's generally if you've already refunded him, maybe you transferred the funds from the association's bank account directly into his, then you would come in here and you would record it and put in auto debit so it doesn't process another check for him. In this case, I want to process him a check. So I'm going to leave that in pay via. I can put in the check date if I'm so inclined. So this is, this is defaulting to today's date. I can change that to any open period. So if I want to backdate him back to February 28th, I could do that. And that's also the date it's going to show up on the owner's account. You can put a memo in there. Going to put an owner refund, but you can put whatever you want to put in there. and then his amount. It's going to go ahead and default to the amount of the credit balance on his account. I want to refund that entire amount. Maybe I only wanted to give him 500. I could change it there and just leave a credit balance of 682.50 if that's what I wanted to do. When I have all this figured out, I can hover over page actions. I can click on process refund. All right, so you can see that updated his credit balance to 182.50 because I decided we're only going to cut him a check for 500. After that's done, I can then go to the accounting AP. And this time I'm going to go to the process owner check page. I was ahead of myself earlier. I'm going to choose either the guy that I want to refund. So that's Elbridge Jerry. I just processed him. In this case, I've got 3 of these guys outstanding. So I'm just going to get all of their owner checks processed at one time. You don't have to do these one at a time. You can do them all in one big group. I'm going to hover over page actions and I'm going to click on generate check. And after a moment, eUnify is going to provide me with a PDF file. And then I will be able to see all my checks here. Here's Mr. Jerry's check. And here's a check for Mr. Owens. And here's a second check for Mr. Owens. When I'm done, I'm just going to go ahead. I can send this to wherever I want to print my checks out and print it on check stock. I'm done. Just cancel out of here. And once you get all of these done, then they'll show up as printed. Okay, so if I want to go back and I want to look at a check that I've already sent out, maybe I want to send a copy to the owner just to let him know, hey, your check's coming. And I can just go over here and click, and it'll bring me up a copy of the check that I just generated, so I can send that to him. Or maybe I print my checks and then I realize, whoopsie, I spilled coffee on it. I could reprint it at that time. Okay, so let's say Mr. Jerry reaches out. And let's say Mr. Jerry tells us that he never got his check. We printed it, we put it in the mail. He didn't get his check. He wants it reissued. So at that point in time, you can come back to the accounting AP, process owner check page. I can go over here and I can click on the little trash can and delete it. Click save, and it will delete his check. Now, if you go to any of these owners that I've already processed a refund check for, I'm going to go just take a look at Mr. Owens's account real quick. And we go to transactions. This will show you the refund that you processed on that owner. However, if we head to Mr. Jerry's account, because we just voided his refund check, I click on him and we take a look at transactions, then we won't see his refund check anymore unless we click show deleted transactions, and then we'll see all the checks that we paid and voided. So as you can see for this guy, he's had quite a few. All right, so that's how you process owner checks. Nice thing about eUnify, not only will it process that check for you, it will put the transaction on the owner's account or void it if you need to void the check. And you don't have to enter the owner as a vendor. So once again, it keeps your vendor list to a minimum. Okay, so I'll take a quick break for questions. Does anyone have any questions on this process so far? Oh, hold on, we did get a question. Can you only delete it because it had not cleared? Answer to that question is going to be completely up to you. However, You don't want to delete a check that has cleared because all of that is going to talk to your bank rec as well. So you're going to see the owner refund on your bank rec. And if you delete that refund from the owner's account, you're not going to see it on your bank rec. You're not going to show any Unify that you refunded them, and you're not going to be able to balance bank rec at month end because your bank statement will be showing that the check is cleared, but you won't show the check in a Unify. The question that somebody asked was hoping that the system would not allow you to delete a check if it had cleared. If you've done your bank reconciliation and you've checked off that that check is already cleared, the system would not allow you to delete that refund at that time because the check's already cleared. So it's going to let you know you can't avoid the check. However, if you haven't done your bank rec yet and you void that check, then yes, it would allow you because you haven't told the system yet that check has cleared the bank. So best option there is if that happens to you, you'll be able to see on your bank statement that the check cleared and that you voided it in error. So you're just going to have to book a debit to the owner's account to represent the refund. And then you're going to have to probably just put in a journal entry to clear the check off your bank rec. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next item. And that is going to be processing a manual check. And these are checks that you write to board members, owners, users, committee members, what have you. eUnify has a special module to allow you to write checks to these guys without, once again, having to add them to your vendor list, thereby keeping your vendor list small. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that one. And in order to access that module, we're going to go to Accounting, AP, and we're going to go to Manage Manual Check. All right, so once again, I'm going to stick with my old favorite, Sun Valley 3. And I'm going to click Search. So these are some examples of manual checks that have already been written. You're able to search through these checks. You've got some items up here on your search bar to allow you to drill down to find a specific check if you're looking for it. If you need to enter a new check, you go to Page Actions and then Add Check. All righty. And then you're just going to go ahead and start entering in the information for your manual check. You'll notice this screen functions very similarly to the way that the Manage Invoice page functions. So we're just going to go here and we're going to put in our date. This is just going to be the date that it hits the general ledger, as well as the date that the check is printed. So you can leave it the default date, which is the date you're working on it, or you can backdate it to an open period. You can enter in an amount. So we're just going to say $200. Now you got a couple options for payee type. We have a user-defined option, which means you can enter in the payee name, payee address, city, state, zip, all that. So you can do that manually. Another really nifty option we have is make the payee type an owner, and then you will be able to look at your owners in eUnify, and you'll be able to pull the owner information into the manual check module. So I'm going to choose Benjamin Stark. He has a couple of contacts. He's going to pick his first one. Now, as you can see, eUnify is going to populate all his information for me, so I don't have to do anything else to get his information in. I can, if I want to, save PDF of his invoice. Maybe he provided a receipt. I can scan that, put that in. Maybe he paid a vendor, scan that, put that in. Whatever you want to do, you can scan it, you can click and drag it. Unfortunately, we talked last time about the really nifty options that eUnify has. of either going through the vendor site to upload invoices or emailing invoices directly into Unify. None of those options will work on this manual check page. You'll just have to pull in a PDF if you want to be able to attach something to this record. Put in I spelled reimburse wrong. So we're going to put in a memo, reimbursed for party supplies. You can add a description if you are so inclined. And then up here in GL account, just pick your expense account you want this to go to or whatever you're paying it out of. You can type in the account number if you have it. You can search a description, or you can just scroll through your general ledger account numbers and find the one that you are looking for. So I think I'm going to just put this to committee expenses because we're reimbursing him for party supplies. I'm going to put him the entire expense there. However, if I needed to allocate that expense out to different general ledger accounts, I could absolutely do that. To make sure that open amount is a 0, so I know that I allocated the entire amount of his payment. And when I'm done, I can click save, save ad if I want to enter in more, or save and post if I'm done and I'm ready to pay it. All right. So I'm going to go to this record that I just created for Mr. Stark. He's $200 to reimburse him for party supplies. If I'm ready to pay him, I'm going to click on his item. If I have multiple ones to click on, I can use my radio button up at the top to choose them all, or just choose the ones I want. I'm going to hover over page actions, and I'm going to generate check. If I had not posted that batch, I could do that here as well. But since I did post it, I'm just going to generate his check. Okay, so it's thinking. And as soon as I do that, it's going to provide me with a PDF. I can print this out wherever I'm printing out my checks, get this in the mail to him. He can pick it up however that works. And when I'm done, I can go to page actions and click on confirm printed. So I know that it's printed and I'm done. Okay. Any questions regarding the manual check? All right, I don't see any questions popping up, so we'll move on to our next item. Well, next we want to talk about some alternate forms of payment. We allow you to do the usual printing a check. You can also choose an auto debit option. And what that means is you've already transferred the money out of your bank account and into the vendor's bank account. Maybe their utilities and they drafted it themselves, or maybe you just got online to your banking software and did it yourself, however that works. But we do have some additional options other than that. And one of those is the ACH payment option. What this will allow you to do is create a NACHA file for your vendors and send that to the bank processing. If you want to utilize that option, the first thing you need to do is you need to get the banking information from your vendor and get it into Unify. And you're going to enter that on the accounting, AP, and the manage vendor page. You're going to find the vendor you want to work with. In this case, I'm just going to look at Bob's Landscaping. I'm going to click on the pencil to edit. All right, I'm going to scroll down to the AP side, and then I'm going to click on Enable ACH Payment. I'm going to put in my routing number, and I'm also going to add in the account number for these guys. They provided for me. Now, if I want to make certain that every time I pay this specific vendor, that it always defaults to an ACH. I can click on that. And every time that I'm in his account and I'm processing an invoice, it'll change the pay via option to ACH. However, if I don't want to do that every time, but I do want it available for him, I'll just turn that off. And when I'm done, I'm going to click Save. Now, in order to process it, I'm going to go, to process, I'm going to Accounting, P. And I'm just going to go to Manage Invoice very quickly, and we're going to add an invoice for Bob's. And we're just going to add a couple of things for him. And we're going to say it's a $200 invoice. And in this Pay Via option, since I did not tell it to default, it's bringing up the default, which is check, but I do have that as an option. So I can choose ACH payment. And I'm just going to keep this simple. And we're going to save and post. And I think for Bob's, I'm going to have to go in and approve it. I have approval rules on this. We will be discussing approval rules in our next AP session. So for those of you who would like to utilize that process, just keep that in mind. All righty. So Bob is now ready to pay. All right, so when you are ready to pay your invoices and you want to process the payment for ACH, you're going to process it. The next step is going to be like all your other invoices, excuse me. We're going to go to Accounting, AP, and you're going to go to Pay Invoice. This is going to tell you what invoices you have that are ready to pay. And based on the bank, it's going to give you your current bank balance. And when you choose the items that you want to pay, it'll give you a remaining bank balance. It's just a neat little piece of information that eUnify provides to you when you're processing your invoices payment. Now, right here, I can change my pay via. If I realized I didn't want to pay this via ACH, I could change that to check or auto debit or whatever. And if I decided I did want to pay Virtucon, I could change that to ACH payment. So whatever it is I want to do, I could just go ahead and process that. Over here to Page Actions, Process Payment. And I process those payments. Next thing you're going to do is to produce a NACHA file, but our next payment option also is going to take a NACHA file. So we'll look at that after we're done with our firm credit card. All righty. So this next alternate payment option that I'd like to talk about are firm credit cards. Now, this is a feature that will allow you to indicate that your invoice was paid with a firm credit card after the payment has been made. You can then produce a NACHA file to allow the association to repay the firm. So this is not going to actually pay it with the credit card. You will have already paid the invoice using the firm credit card. And this function will allow you to indicate that on the invoice and then allow you to do a transfer from the association to the firm to reimburse for that expense. So the first thing you're going to need to do in order to activate utilizing that firm credit card option is to go to Firm and Manage Firm. You're going to go to the Preferences tab, and then we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Well, not quite to the bottom, but very close to it. The AP settings. You have to go in and choose the bank account that your firm is using. If you don't already have that bank set up, you're going to need to go to Banking and Manage Bank and set up the bank that your association is using. And then you'll come back here to the Preferences page and you'll enter in the bank account and the routing information for that, for the firm bank. Once you have that entered, you're going to click Save. And then you will be able to indicate invoices paid with a firm credit card. So in order to take a look at that, we're going to go to Accounting, AP. I'm going to go back to Manage Invoice. And I'm going to click on Page Actions. And I'm going to click on the invoice again. So we're just going to throw in a invoice really quickly. Let's go to Virtucon. And I'm just going to put in a quick $200 invoice. And right here where it says Pay Via is defaulting to ACH payment because that's what we have set up on the vendor side. I'm just going to click on this arrow, access the drop down, and change that to firm credit card. Because we're going to say this invoice has already been paid with a firm credit card. Just go over here, finish up my invoice. Once again, I went over in more detailed how to fill out this page in our last session. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, I would recommend going back and checking it. All I'm doing is just throwing a couple quick invoices in there. So I'm not going to go back through that detail again, but you're welcome to view it when you have more time. Click Save and Post, okay, to save that invoice information. And all mine have approval rules. So I'm going to go ahead and approve it. And then it should be ready to pay. And Yahoo it is. So once again, my next step is going to be Accounting, AP, Pay Invoice. And then I can, once again at this step, change my Pay Via option. I'm going to leave it firm credit card. But if I had something that I had flagged as a check, I could always change it to firm credit card at this step if I needed to. And then Actions and Process Payment. Okay, so I did an ACH and I did a firm credit card. Now what I need to do is process a NACHA file. So you can send it to the bank. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Accounting, AP, and we're going to go to Process ACH. So these are some ACHs that have already been processed. If I go to Page Actions and I go to Add Batch, I can select my bank. So here I'm going to select Firm Bank Account. And then sorry, not Firm Bank Account, sorry, Mutual of Omaha. That is, my apologies, that is the operating account for Sudden Valley 3. So I can look at this a couple of different ways. I can process my ACH and my firm credit card information all together. I can look at just my ACH payments, or I could look at my firm credit card payments. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to look at ACH for this first round. Give it a title, pick the batches that you want to process. If I click up here, it'll process all of them together. If I want to process them separately, I can do that, however I want to do that. And then when I'm done, click either Save or Save Add. Save Add will remove all this and allow me to create another batch if I am so inclined. Good. Here, I'm just going to click Save. Now I have this new batch that's ready to be processed. So I'm just going to click this. I can do both of these at the same time if I want, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I just want to look at my ACH items. Hover over Page Action. I'm going to click on Create NACHA File. And it'll ask me, are you sure you want to process selected items? I'm going to tell it okay. So this is going to take a minute to generate, depending on how many items you have in there. We only had 2, so as you can see, it generated pretty quickly. So if I click on the .txt file, I'll see if I can make it a little bigger. but this is your NACHA file. So this you can upload to your banking software for your bank to process. It'll have the information for your operating bank account. It'll have the information for the vendor bank accounts, whoever it is you're reimbursing. Send that to them, they'll process it. And when they let you know that it's processed, then you can come out here, click on this button again, page action, and then confirm processed. When you confirm processing, then it will make all your journal entries for you on the cash side. All right, and that's what you would need to do if you want to pay bills either with an ACH or with a firm credit card. Anyone have any questions that I can answer for you very quickly before we go on to our last few items? All right. Okay, I don't see anything popping up. So we're going to go ahead and hit our last few items. So what we're going to talk about next are just some additional features. They're really helpful items that eUnify will do for you if you want to take a few minutes to get it set up. The first item that we'll talk about is our Manage Vendor Invoice page. And the purpose of this page is to allow users outside of your accounting department to view and enter AP information without allowing access to the accounting module or payment screens. So admin assistants, compliance people, managers, anyone that you don't want to give access into accounting, you can give access to this Manage Vendor Invoice page, and they can do a lot of work on the invoice and view a lot of information on the invoice. So if I go to Activities and Manage Vendor Invoice, pull that page up, I'll just click Search and we'll see what's out there. So all of these items match what's sitting on your Manage Invoice page. This will tell you the items that have been paid. This will tell you the check number they were paid with, or if they were paid with an auto debit. If there's an invoice attached to this, your manager, admin assistant, whoever's using this page, can click on it and they can take a look at the invoice itself. If they click on the pencil to edit, they can see a lot more information. They can see everything that you're seeing once again on the Manage Invoice page. They can see how it was allocated, excuse me. If it's been paid, they can look at the payment information. So they can see this was paid with an auto debit on March 2nd in the amount of $600. If there were any approvals, if you're using approval rules, they will see all that information here. So it really is a very helpful page to utilize. We got some arrows that will take them just from one invoice to the next. So a lot of things they can do on this page. In addition, let's look at, this Bob's Landscaping bill. If I click on this pencil to edit, since this hasn't been paid yet, this will allow them to go in and be able to do some work on this invoice. So if this invoice is dropped in there, they can say, you know what, this shouldn't be landscape improvements. It should be landscape maintenance additional services. And they can make that correction and they can save it. They can look at the invoice, they can code the invoice, they can enter in a lot of information. They can go in to page actions and add invoice, and they can add their own invoice in. So if they have an invoice that they got from the landscaper, they can just click and drag that in here and they can fill everything out. So this is a pretty nifty little page to allow managers, admin assistants, and other ancillary staff maybe that might need to be involved in deciding what allocations look like and getting the invoices in, but don't really need to be involved in the actual payment feature itself. So this is all that it will let them do. And then you can control how much they can do here as well on the administration and manage profile permissions. So you might just want to give them view access, or you might want to give them access to be able to add and delete invoices in, or maybe just add edit access and not allow them to delete anything. So once you decide you want to set this up, you've got a lot of options that you can utilize for how your users will use it. Okay. So the next item up is our Manage Vendor Term page. And you can set that up by going to Accounting, AP, AP Setup, and then Manage Vendor Term. So as you can see, we already have some terms set up. And what the terms will allow you to do is indicate a set number of days allowed to pay an invoice. So when you enter an invoice into Unify, and let's say it's an invoice dated March 22nd, and this vendor only gives you 5 days to pay, you can set a net 5. Unify will calculate that for you and let you know that that invoice is due by March 27th. If I hover over Page Actions and click on Add Vendor Term, put in the title, so we'll just call it Net 5, sorry, Net 5. You can name it whatever you want to name it, just make sure you know what it is when you're looking at it. Put in 5 days, click Save or Save As to add additional terms. And then what you're going to go do is you're going to attach it to the vendor. So you've got a whole bunch of terms here. You can go Accounting, AP, Manage Vendor, and you can choose a vendor. And we're just going to pick on Bob's again. And click that pencil to edit. And you can scroll down here to the AP section again. And where it says Terms, you can choose the terms you want. So in this case, I'm going to pull that Net 5. I'm going to click Save. So that means every time I enter an invoice for Bob's Landscaping, Unify is going to take a look at that invoice state, and it's going to add the days that I told it to, and it's going to calculate my due date for me. So just to kind of show you what that'll look like, I'll go to Accounting, AP, and we'll just add in a quick invoice. So Manage Actions again and Add Invoice. And then I'm going to look at Bob's. And then I'm going to invoice date, and I'm going to say 3/22/2023, and it's automatically going to calculate the due date as 3/27 for me. I can print that on report so I can see if I have any invoices that are past due. It's a pretty nifty little feature. All right, so before we move on to the next one, does anyone have any questions? We haven't been getting a lot of questions, so let's see. Okay, I don't see any new questions, so we'll move on to our Manage Vendor Hold Types. In order to access that page, I'm going to go to Accounting, AP, AP Setup, and Manage Vendor Hold Type. This will give me a list of hold types I already have set up. And just to kind of take a look at everything, I'm going to click on the pencil to edit, and we'll just take a look and see what that looks like. So I've given it a title, that's not complete. And I've told eUnify, when I have this vendor on hold, what do I want to allow this vendor to be able to do? I can, with the vendors on hold, I can still allow them to make a payment. I can allow a new invoice. I can also allow assigning work orders. Or I don't have to allow any of those things. So when I put a vendor in this hold status, then we wouldn't be able to process any new invoices, we wouldn't be able to pay any current invoices, nor would we be able to assign work orders. Maybe you want to be able to do this and this, but not this. So you can mix and match what you use by hold type, and that'll give you a lot of flexibility into what you're doing for your vendors. So once you have it set up the way you want it set up, to assign it to a vendor, you're going to go to Accounting, AP, Manage Vendor. We're going to pick on Bob's again. I'm going to click on the pencil to edit, and I'm going to go right here to where it says Status. So I can choose to have an active vendor, an inactive vendor, or if we were just looking at, can place that vendor on hold. Once I do that, I get a drop-down list of all those hold types that we were looking at earlier, and I can decide which one I want to use. In this case, I'll just say insurance expired. And then when I'm done, I click Save. All righty. So next up are managing vendor document types. So if you will remember, when we're setting up our manage vendor, we have the option to go into documents and add documents onto these vendors. And then we can actually customize document types that we're using to do this. So in order to access that screen, I'm going to be on Accounting, AP Setup, and this time I'm going to go to Manage Vendor Document Type. And these are all the document types that I've created. If I want a new one, I can hover over Page Action and choose Add Vendor Document Type, and then I can give it a title. So let's say our title is Webinar Type, just to give it a name. Now, when I'm setting up a document type, I can choose to auto hold on expiration. Now, it's only going to work if I'm setting start and end dates when I'm adding in my document type. So what I'm telling the system is, if I'm adding in start and end dates, and we're past that end date, automatically place that vendor on this specific hold. So in this case, I can say, let's just say insurance expired. So whatever parameters that I set up on that insurance expired hold type that we were looking at earlier, it's going to automatically trigger when the document, the insurance deck page or whatever it is I'm using, when that expiration date expires, this is automatically going to go on hold. When I'm done, I'm going to click Save. And then you can see here, I've got a few document types, and quite a few of them have auto hold types assigned to them. So this will do it automatically for you, so you don't have to remember to do it. However, you do need to make certain that you are setting a start and an end date so the system knows when to put this on hold. Okay. And you'll notice that when you're in your vendor and you're on the Documents tab, click on Add a Document, and you can pull that document type. So in this case, I'm just going to pull insurance. Then I can enter in all of my information, including my from and to date. And when this expires, this guy goes on hold. Okay, so we're getting close to time, but we have one last quick topic to discover, and that is going to be our Manage Vendor category. In order to access that page, we're going to go to Accounting, AP Setup, and then Manage Vendor category. And this just allows you to create custom vendor categories to assist when you're searching on the Manage Vendor page. So basically, you're just creating this list here. So in order to do that, once again, I'm going to hover over Page Actions. I'm going to add my vendor category. And then I'm just going to name it whatever I want to name it. So I can say webinar and click Save, or save and add if I want to add in more. And then when I'm on the vendor page, let's go back to Bob's. We're just going to pick on him. I can just choose webinar as his category. And then when I'm searching and I want to see all of my businesses that have a roofing category or a webinar category or what have you, I pull that up, click search, and it'll bring all of them up. In this case, it's just ArchCom. Okay, so that is all I had to talk about today. I'm going to come in and I'm going to unmute all of you. If you have any questions, if you'll click on the microphone, yours should be red with a line through it. If you'll click on that microphone, I'll be able to hear you, and then you can ask any questions you have about anything that we've been discussing today. Also, if you raise your hand, that'll help me see what's going on. Oh, I hear somebody popping up. That's
Well,
Elise. Hi, Elise. We found
hello.
you.
I've been here. I just was not logged in as a administrator, so it wouldn't let me unmute myself. So, but now I can.
All right. Well, for everyone who is missing Elise, here she is. Yay.
Hello, everybody.
All right. So do we have any other questions that that you guys would like for me to answer while we're here? Once again, make sure to unmute yourself or I won't be able to hear you. You can also raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, I'm not seeing anything and I'm not hearing anyone. So yeah, you're welcome to reach out after the fact if you have any questions. Make certain when you log out, there's a survey there. I would appreciate it if you'd answer us, let us know how we're doing, let us know any things that you want to talk about in the future. Over the next couple of weeks, we will not be having a live webinar. We're going to do a couple of syndicated sessions, which means I will be playing webinars from previous weeks. Just some information that we really think would be good for you guys to have. One is on import data, and the week after is going to be on client activity reports. So even though I won't be there live and in person, you will still be able to ask questions and you will still be able to listen to the information that was given in those previous webinars. All right, so thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate your time, and thank you, Elise, for popping up. And if we don't have anything, I'm going to go ahead and close us out. Thanks, guys.